On January 1, 2014, my host today, while admonishing Nigerians to believe in the Nigerian project, said, and I quote, "Hope, dreams, and expectations must not be lost. We must begin to believe in Nigeria and the Nigerian project once more. We must start by defining for ourselves the kind of future that we want, so that we can unite towards recreating the Nigeria of our collective dreams." End of quote. Well, hello and welcome. This is 60 Minutes with me, Angela Jetumobi. Thank you for joining me on the program today. Now, my host today, the Lagos State Governor Babatunde Fashola, says Nigerians should shun religious and ethnic intolerance. He says the truth is that whether it is the downturn of the economy or our security situation, the challenges are traceable to ourselves. We must draw strength, he says, from this nation's diversity. So join me after the break. I'm counting down 60 minutes with Babatunde Fashola, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and Governor of Lagos State, the commercial capital of Nigeria. Thank you very much for coming on the program, Your Excellency.
Pleasure to be here again.
Yes. All right, so let's start with this. Much has been made of the religious leaning of those who seek to govern us, either the president or the governor. In Lagos particularly, there is a serious clamor for a Christian governor after you leave in 2015. Many are also making comments about the proposed or the alleged Muslim ticket of the All Progressives Congress, the party you belong to, the APC. So the question, I suppose, is, does religion and ethnicity have a place in our politics? Should it have a place?
I think there are about three questions in there, but they are premised on what I think is a rather sweeping statement. I am aware that every election is an opportunity to make a choice. I am also aware that, rightly or wrongly, almost every part of the country has a claim to being marginalized. That poses a very serious challenge about how resources have been distributed in terms of equity and how widespread they are. And so it's not unusual to have all of these sentiments coming up. But to the question, my view is that whilst those sentiments cannot be stopped, one can only advise that the issue in choosing the head of a government is really an issue about who will best be able to manage the resources of human capital, revenues, land, and all of that together to ensure that the greatest number of people feel a sense of inclusion and benefit. And if that is correct, it is then a test of ability, competence, and fair-mindedness, rather than a test of what is the best religion, rather than a test of who worships more, and so on and so forth. And when you look at, after 50 years, I think that I have experienced more than a fair share of Nigeria's history. I think that, yes, we are more prayerful today on both sides of the divide, but the jury is out how godly we are. And given now all of the type of things that we see people selling children, people falsifying papers, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
And as a child, these were not things that I recall was in our national debate and cultural evolution. So it raises a question of values rather than faith. They may be overlaps, but
Yes.
they don't, in my view, approximate to the same. As for the question of a Muslim ticket, it's important to say to those who are not involved integrally in how political parties work, perhaps shed some light on how this process works, so that they would understand that first, it is a premature concern. It hasn't evolved. I don't know whether it will evolve, and I say that because our party, at least I can speak for, will have to hold a national convention to produce a presidential candidate. Who that presidential candidate will be, I don't know, and I don't think anybody in the party knows. Because at this moment, as I speak, we haven't held our national convention to elect national officers of the party. We have conducted the world congresses, who elected the local government, party office holders who have elected the state party representatives, all of who will now be delegates to the national convention to elect the national officers of the party, from chairman to all the other offices.
Yes.
It is when that is finished that the party structure from the national body will now set an electoral calendar for primaries into offices of House of Assembly, House of Rep, Senate, Governor, and Presidency.
Right.
So until you obtain a form and you submit that form,
Yes.
and you go through what I believe will be a screening process, you are not yet even a candidate. So whether it will be Muslim, Christian, Hindu, who will emerge, it will first be indicative from those who are cleared to contest those elections.
Yes.
Because every party wants to win an election. And therefore, that is when you begin to look at who is the best candidate to balance that ticket. In terms of ability, in terms of a message of inclusion, and so many other considerations. And sometimes, in making those choices, I will admit that what may seem to be the easiest answer
Yes.
is not always the easiest answer. And let me give you an example. First, the person who is seeking now, in his mind,
Yes.
planning that he wants to run, whoever that may be,
Yes.
knows that he will need the votes of all the delegates from all the 36 states to emerge as candidate. You ask yourself logically that if you now say that, oh, if I win, Angela Ajetumobi will be my running mate.
Yes.
If there is any other person who is seeking to be running mate also in his own plan,
Yes.
will he vote for you?
No.
Because you have excluded. So it would even be tactless for that candidate now to say, this is the person that I am going to take. When President Obama was running in 2008, and he won the ticket from Mrs. Clinton, those of us who didn't live in America were thinking, oh, Mrs. Clinton, a woman,
Yes.
America stood at the threshold of producing a first black president, history. Why not take Mrs. Clinton, a first female vice president, history?
Yes.
She also had at the time, it was either 12 or 20 female voters, that this was going to be the automatic candidate to run with Obama. But of course, it showed how ignorant we were about the American electoral process when Joe Biden came on. I seem to recall then that the reason for putting on Joe Biden was his experience in foreign relations, his experience in the Senate, and so on and so forth. With hindsight, it was perhaps a well-informed decision, because President Obama was a first-time senator who hadn't even fully served out his term. He was going to go to presidential debate on 3 issues which the presidential elections always turn on foreign policy, social issues, and the economy.
Yes.
And if you go back to the second term debate, in the eyes of all those who watched that his first debate in the second term, he lost that debate. He was the vice presidential candidate who came around to save the debate. And if I recollect correctly, America, for some time also, did not pay too much attention to who was going to be vice president,
yes,
until when Kennedy died and Lyndon Johnson became their president. He was vice president, so he really didn't have too much of a presence. But the experience in the Lyndon Johnson era made them to put as much importance to the office of vice president. And I think our experiences in the past, yes, suggest to us that we must pay the same attention going forward.
So let's stay within the Southwest region. Whatever happened to that plan by states of the Southwest to create a regional hub that will bring development to the 6 states that make up the Southwest region?
I don't know how the nomenclature Southwest has found its way into our daily life. Yeah. I think it was something that came up as almost like a footnote during one constitutional conference in the 90s. But it seemed to have stuck. And there's nowhere in the 1999 Constitution, yes, with all the amendments, that Southwest is mentioned.
Yes.
The organs of integration are senatorial districts, local governments, states, and the central government, and of course the federal capital territory. Those are the divisions and subdivisions of the country that the Constitution recognizes. And we didn't say Southwest, we, yes, said Western Nigeria.
Right.
Because the states, except perhaps for Delta and Edo now, that used to be part of Western Nigeria before the Midwest was created,
yes,
were part of the Western Nigeria under the premiership of Chief Obafemi Awolowo.
Yes.
And those that are remaining now, that were the Lobo states, Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Ondo, and Osun, and Ekiti now, felt that there was need for collaboration and integration in order to deepen and accelerate development. We set up a commission, the Developmental Agenda for Western Nigeria.
Right.
And I am happy to inform you that we are collaborating at many levels. The commission is now headed by a Director General, Mr. Dipo Famakinwa, extremely intelligent Nigerian and very resourceful and passionate about development,
yes, who
he's coordinating with his office. The governors still meet, and where we can't meet formally, we share notes. So we are cooperating at the levels of our heads of service. They are meeting rotationally. We are cooperating in terms of disaster management. We are cooperating in terms of security. Right. We are cooperating in terms of ideas. Right. And you will see ideas from one state being replicated in another state. We are cooperating in terms of our Greek. We're sharing land. I'm getting land from Ogun, Ekiti, Osun. We reviewed in council how Lagos and Ogun can double down and fix the Itoikin-Ekpe road so that it will bring relief to citizens, especially now that some work is about to go on the Lagos-Ibadan and to give relief to citizens. Yes. And we'll be holding the Dawn Games, right, which is the acronym for Development Agenda for Western Nigeria, an idea conceived by the state government in Lagos, which I communicated with my colleagues, and they embraced, thankfully. And what we are doing is that, okay, as we are integrating at the senior levels of government, what about the younger people? And so we created a games, sporting events for our children across all the secondary schools in those regions. It will hold in Lagos for a week. Another state will host it, I believe, next year. Yes. So, and the whole idea is first to enable those students to travel across, know the different states, meet their contemporaries who they're likely to meet in future, working in different cadres and professions in public and private sector, just like you used to have, I think, the old Greer Games, Greer Cup, and the academicals, and so it's something along those lines. So it's not something, it's not rocket science, it's to go back to old building blocks that have worked before, and I hope that it would achieve its objective. So all of that cooperation is still going on.
And I'm surprised you're talking about cooperation and collaboration. I did hear somewhere that you said Lagos State didn't have a need to be a member of a region and Lagos State can go it alone.
No. Perhaps I want to believe that I might have been misquoted.
Yes.
What I said was perhaps the question of the Southwest and Northwest and Northeast and all those things, that they had no constitutional recognition, and that in my view, it is true that our people feel that they are entitled to a better life,
Right.
and that their demand for goods and services is sometimes misunderstood for a demand for a change of structure. Usually manifests in a change of constitution, amendment of the constitution. And the view I have taken is that whilst everything that is made by man will never be perfect, just as a constitution will never be,
Yes.
that there's a lot more that can be done by attitudinal change and value changes using the same constitution.
Yes.
And therefore, we must not approximate a demand for a better life as being the same thing as a demand for a new document. We must be careful. We had the regions.
Yes.
When they started dismembering them into states, it was at the request of our people. Everybody wanted a state.
Yes.
Now that we have created the states, and they don't seem, from our people's agitation, to have met their developmental needs.
Yes.
We seem too quickly ready to assemble it back. Without asking the question whether it is the structure that is the problem or the people. And finally, if I may make this point, because I think it's important.
Yes.
There is no organ in the Constitution that is created without a mandate and a responsibility, and also without some direct or indirect reference
Yes.
as to how it will be financed. So if you create regions, you must have officers for those regions. If on one hand, we are saying that public expenditure is rising in terms of emoluments and recurrent expenditure and overheads for running government, and we want to reduce it, how consistent is that with the recommendation to create another organ? Because if you create a regional structure,
Yes.
it must have a leader. It must have offices and organs. And it will only mean that you are dipping further into funds that are arguably not sufficient for developmental work, to pay emoluments, to run offices,
Yes.
to fuel diesel, and so on and so forth. The other thing we must resolve is that what powers will you give it? Will you take the local government's powers? Will you take the state's powers? Or will you take the federal government's powers? If you do that, any one or all of the three, whose resources will you take in the revenue sharing formula?
Yes.
Because everybody is saying the money is not enough.
Yes.
So those are very deep questions. They are not emotional. They don't foreclose the creation of regions, but they compel very, very in-depth, logical, and detailed thinking about whether that is the way to go.
Right. All right. We'll take our first break now. Join us again after the break. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, it's 60 Minutes with me, Angela Ajitumobi. On my hot seat today, the Governor of Lagos State, Babatunde Fashola. Now, July 19, 2003, the Supreme Court dismissed a suit by the Attorney General of the Federation seeking for the federal government to control the hospitality industry. The court held that the 1999 Constitution only empowered the federal government to regulate tourist traffic. Have all parties now, that's the Lagos State government and the federal government, have they adjusted to the realities of that judgment?
Well, I think first it is important to set the context of the judgment of the Supreme Court as I recall it.
Okay.
There was a claim by Lagos State government, and I think there was another action by the federal government, both seeking to enforce different interpretations of, I think, Article 56 or 65, I'm not sure which one now,
Right.
under the exclusive legislative list as it related to the duty and the responsibility of the federal government with regards to tourism.
Right.
And we took the view that since it limited expressly the exclusive power to regulate tourist traffic. It did not translate to a power to regulate hotels or to go into full-scale tourism promotion and all of those things.
Yes.
So the Supreme Court dismissed the position of the federal government and upheld our claim. And that said, the sum and substance of the judgment was that issuance of visas,
yes,
immigration, and those are the type of things which I understood to fall within the remit of regulation of tourist traffic. And the federal government has a lot of work to do in that area because people still find it difficult either to come and do business and business leads to tourism, because if you make money, you want to spend money.
Yes.
So, and it's still difficult from some of the things I hear, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, to get a visa to come into Nigeria. When you can get your visa to go into Dubai,
yes,
at the point of entry, if you apply within 72 hours, Kenya and Rwanda are issuing visas to tourists at point of entry. If we lose all of those opportunities because of our failure to knuckle down and do very simple things, then it has very adverse consequences for the economy at large. But regrettably, I still see that the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation is still going ahead, saying it is promoting tourism and
yes,
getting involved in carnivals and all of those kind of things, which really should not be their business.
Right.
And this is in open defiance of the Supreme Court decision. And I've instructed the Attorney General to take steps to enforce that judgment in the appropriate way. You go to other ports of entry across the world and you see smiling faces, and also there's a lot of work to be done, rather, at all of our airports and our seaports and our border posts, and not only for tourism, also for security, to be able to document and detail
yes,
who is coming in, who is going out, and to be able to collate, working with the states. It doesn't mean that they will be totally excluded.
yes,
We should be saying and collecting data from our hotels. How many people came for business? How many people came for tourism? That's how nations aggregate at the end of the year.
yes,
How many tourist passengers they got. All those embarkation and disembarkation cards,
yes,
landing cards that are filled. That's where you get all of that data as people come in and go out. And disclosure of cash and all of that we bring in, that countries all over the world are able to publish their tourism output in terms of production and aggregate it into their nation's GDP.
yes.
And that's what the federal government should be focusing on, instead of chasing hotels around and all of those things.
And will the Lagos State government still be setting up the tourism academy? What's the word on that now?
Well, incidentally, we've looked at the existing tourism law, and we think that it can do with an amendment. Incidentally, in the Executive Council meeting, we considered an executive bill for that purpose. We still see that there are a few T's to cross and I's to dot. Right. So we will continue discussions on it with instructions to the Attorney General to do some comparative study also about nations and cities that are taking a lead.
Yes.
We know, for example, that Ghana has based its tourism concept around the idea of Akwaba, and South Africa has done a lot, Dubai has done a lot, so we want to do some more comparative studies, see what's going on in Mauritius. So I told them to get on the net and bring all of that material to us in council, so that we can make a decision. And I think that the door is now open, really. Even the Federal Capital Territory was happy at the decision, and because they asked us to send them copies of the judgment and that they can take their tourism destiny in their own hands. And I think all the other states should do so now, begin to develop their tourism so that everybody begins to really diversify. If this is the problem we hear, jobs, jobs, jobs.
Yes.
And the tourism industry has an enormous capacity to employ young people, to support small businesses.
Yes.
Because if people stay in hotels, there's a lot of maintenance to go on, televisions to be fixed and supplied, beddings, linen,
plumbers,
toiletry,
electricians,
food. So agriculture will benefit because
Yes.
people will eat, they will drink.
Yes.
So there's a lot of work that can potentially be released
Yes.
if the regulatory authorities at the federal government face their own remit and leave each state to develop on its own speed and begin to take benefit
Yes.
and localize the benefit for her people.
All right. I had calls previously to congratulate you on the second tranche of the World Bank loan, $200 million that Lagos State government has. I'm not sure if you've received it yet.
That's why I was chuckling to myself. Why are you congratulating me?
Well, it's been approved, and
2 years after it was due, by simply the failure of the federal government to do simply administrative work. The loan of 600 million had been approved during President Yar'Adua's time. The only thing was that we couldn't take 600 million in 1 year, so we were supposed to take them over 3 years, 2011, 2012, and 2013. In December of 2011, and we haven't received 2012 or 2013, and 2014 we are still shuffling paperwork around.
And then with the recent
because right now we are waiting for Federal Executive Council now to meet and approve the World Bank terms, which have now changed.
Yes. When you say which have now changed, are you talking about the rebasing of the economy? Now that they say that rebasing has resulted in a higher GDP, will the value of $200 million remain $200 million? Will it be affected?
Well, it would remain to the extent that subject to rates of exchange.
Okay.
And, but again, it would depend on what the foreign components of the goods and services we will buy locally will be. We are not going to spend dollars here. If the Naira was trading at 156 or 150 in 2011 and is now 170, it means that you need more Naira to buy the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Because we are going to use the money for infrastructure, iron rods, cement, labor, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
But quite aside from that, I'm not sure now what the immediate effect is, and in this I must speak that I can only conjecture that it is not totally disconnected from the rebasing of the GDP, because our classification now as a nation has changed because of the size of our economy. For example, the loan that was approved for us was an interest-free loan, 0% interest. It was a 40-year tenured loan.
Yes.
It had, I think, a 10-year moratorium before we started paying back. Now the terms have changed. It now bears interest at 1.25% because of the delays. Clearly, the delays.
Yes.
And perhaps tangentially, the reclassification of our status as a borrowing nation.
Yes.
So,
is the moratorium
has been reduced to 10 years, to 5 years instead of 10 years. Interest has now been applied at 1.25%
instead of
from
zero.
What else has changed? The tenure has been reduced from 40 years to 25 years. So, what were you congratulating me for? And I still don't have the money.
It's still not in your hands.
And those things we should have done 2 years ago.
Yes.
We haven't even started to do with the money. And so it's a double jeopardy really for us. In order to do some of them, because we had budgeted for these things on the approvals that we got in 2011, that all will be well. So we had included tranche 2 in our budget for 2012. It didn't come. So we went to the capital market to raise that amount. So from an interest-free loan, we had to raise a short-term loan to do those things because we had promised citizens that this was going to be done. We can't go back and tell them it's not possible. So we borrowed at 14% for 7 years. So that's one cost. We did the same thing in 2013 on the belief that it would be done. So twice, we've taken shorter-term loans. And as if that wasn't bad enough,
yes,
when the money is now coming, interest again is on it. But you see, hopefully when the money comes, the real benefit will be that at least people can see that the services are being delivered. So delayed projects, like the rail project and so many other things that waiting. So even the period now to start shuffling papers, to start a borrowing process, cost us a lot of time.
Okay. Now, the Lagos Economic Summit, I remember in 2012, it focused on path, power, agriculture, transport, and housing. This year, 2014, the 7th summit focused on electricity. The theme was powering the Lagos economy, real opportunities, endless possibilities. Now, in real terms, what is the gain, with these summits? What does Lagos State gain from hosting these summits? And I'm not talking about macroeconomic indices on paper that look good. I'm looking for positive spin-offs that will come from these summits.
That was the 7th summit, I believe. And first to say that in my report to the summit, I went back from the very first summit, aggregated all of the resolutions that were passed at those summits.
Yes.
Resolutions that had been implemented, and I think it was about 130-something out of about 140. So I think there were, in the result, only about 5 resolutions over 7 years that we have committed to implement that remain outstanding. And all those 5 were 5 resolutions that needed the input of the federal government. So all the matters that we committed to in public that were within our remit and control, we have implemented. One of the benefits of the Engbeti is the BRT system. Traffic lights, quality of urban infrastructure that you're now seeing, roads with sidewalks and pedestrian walk, street lighting. It helps to commit government to start something. One of it is the street lighting projects that you see, public street lighting beginning to emerge.
Yes.
One of it is the Security Trust Fund that has helped us to improve the capacity of policing in order to create an environment for business. And the list is agric, yes, our improvement in output of cultivation and production of rice are resolutions of the summit that we have gone on to implement. Lagos HOMS, a resolution of the summit to improve supply of affordable housing on a sustainable basis. The rail project that we are embarking upon is one of it. So improved transport systems ultimately lead to economic benefit.
Yes.
New roads, new urban infrastructure, improve property values and increases income into the pockets of house owners, increases the borrowing power of those assets for business as collateral, and so on and so forth. So the benefits are really astronomical. What is important for us in that summit, and that was why it used to be an annual summit before, we changed it into a biennial summit.
That's once every 2 years.
Every 2 years, in order to be able to knuckle down and do work to implement the resolutions that we commit to, instead of just having an annual talk shop every year. So what follows every summit is that the Ministry of Economic Planning, that is the host ministry, comes back to council, presents a memorandum for us to adopt all those resolutions, and then we set responsibilities to every ministry that is directly or incidentally involved, and work begins. And I have measured. So every quarter, they are presenting to us progress report, because I cannot go back to the public and say, oh, sorry, we haven't done this. So once we commit that we will do something, we give it our best shot. This time around, we haven't changed from path. We are just seeing now that whether it is agric, transportation, housing, power is a major, major enabler. So while we are committing to path, we're focusing more on the enabler, which is power. Power will be definitive, for example, in how effectively we use our land. We can't go to 6 floors because there's no power-to-power lifts, and our land is limited. So we are starting designs now with 6 floors, building in the lift shaft so that you can come and insert the lift at any time when there's power. Agric, storage, processing, packaging will be critical, and its success will depend on power. Those are the ways to study and deliver the micro, which is what you say you are interested in, because it's the micro that puts money in people's pocket, that puts job in people's hands, and that gives dignity to citizens, that they can wake up in the morning and say they are going out to undertake a productive activity that is self-rewarding. Transport, you will see that most of the street lights were adaptive and inventive in how we keep them on in spite of the lack of public power. So some of the things you are seeing, the Akute power plant was as a result of a resolution from the summit that we must provide sustainable power to power the waterworks. Adding phase 2 waterworks that is under construction is an outcome of a commitment to improve water supply. So Adding phase 2 is under construction now to deliver another 70 million gallons of water. We have started the concept design for Adding phase 3. So the summits have been extremely helpful to help us set targets and to get people to knuckle down and do some work, and we can measure progress.
All right. Join us again after the break. Welcome back. My concluding moments now with Governor Babatunde Fashola of Lagos State. Now, globally, everyone recognizes that Lagos is the commercial, business, and economic center of the capital of Nigeria. So, personally, I feel that you or the Lagos State government, lost a very grave opportunity to be able to showcase the potential investments in the potentials of Lagos State as an investment destination, first of all, and also to show support to Nigeria's president while the World Economic Forum was holding in Abuja from May 7th to May 9th with your absence at that forum. So why was Lagos not there at the World Economic Forum?
I think that the conclusions that you draw from my absence are rather extreme. I disagree that it was a lack of support. I think the president knows where I stand in terms of my patriotism, and whether I'm governor or not, I am still a citizen of Nigeria, and I can't choose another president, at least not now. So, and every effort that he undertakes in the process of developing the nation has my support directly or indirectly, so long as they are channeled towards developing the country. If our governments disagree on strategy and principles, it's not personal. So that said, in terms of conclusions that you draw. Also, I think that you must also understand that in a federation, the support that any governor can give to the president is to ensure that his state is making progress. The people in his state are happy. It is the aggregation of the states that is the aggregation of the country. And the governor can't govern the president can't govern every state. So a state like Lagos, I think the biggest support that we could give is what we have given, to continue to keep hope alive here, to develop things, to keep the state safe, and to reduce the areas of pressure and the areas of concerns that the head of state will have. I joke sometimes and I say that, look, every president in Nigeria, if he wakes up, should just say, look, how is Lagos, how is Kano, how is Rivers, as a start. And if those three places are doing well, then he should begin to go down and see how the other states are doing. Because those are some of the critical states. Not that any state is less important. I don't want to be misunderstood. Kano and Lagos are the most populous. Rivers have all of the largest oil explorations and all of those things, and in that sense become strategic. And if those places are peaceful and people are happy, I also think that people should understand that the World Economic Forum is a membership thing. I attended some sessions on invitation in Abu Dhabi once and also in South Africa. But truth be told, I didn't think that my absence would will change anything.
Yes.
I also believe that the investors, most of who are here, already know enough about the country.
Yes.
And they know where their businesses are and all of that. And I think that those kind of conferences only bring to them an opportunity to speak with the leader
Yes.
of the country to hear how things are. And honestly, there were local issues that I didn't feel comfortable about. And one of them was that, look, during the Engbeti Summit, a presidential task force went to one of our construction sites where the MTN was partnering with the LSDPC to build a block of offices.
Yes.
And car parks for public and private use at Falomo. And at the time we were hosting an economic summit of investors, I thought that it was inappropriate, as it were. Even if there was a dispute about land, which there isn't, the COOs for that land are in the hands of those agencies of government. They've been building for almost 2 years, done the piling and the foundation, and to just go and stop a construction using soldiers is not the type of message we should be sending to investors. What if they ask me that, look, what this happened at I can't lie in public.
Yes.
So, and I'm still reconciling that with myself.
So what is happening in that site now at Falomo?
It's shut down.
Nothing.
Nothing is happening.
And after the shutdown, was Lagos State communicated to in any way?
Well, I know that I'm not aware that there has been any official. They just put soldiers there. That was all. I've written to the president, and I hope that I will get a response
on that. Huh.
You know, MTN, that's an investor investing 3-point-something billion, and so many other hundreds of billions in our telecom sector. It's not a nice way.
And while your economic summit was going on?
It's not a nice way. And these things get around.
All right, so let's talk about Lagos Home Ownership Mortgage Scheme. You've had the third draw. Everyone thinks it's a success now. So far, I know that about 76 homeowners have emerged. The worry for myself and a lot of people is how to sustain this scheme beyond your tenure, which ends in another year, especially as you've already mentioned, there seem to be arguments between the Lagos State government and the federal government with regard to some spaces where you are building homes.
If we are constructing about 16, 17 places and we have disputes over 2, they threaten the project, no doubt, but we'll continue to go ahead, and we hope that reason will prevail. And I don't see any reason to be, I don't know why you are worried about sustainability. I don't get involved in the process. The board now has a CEO, it has a governance board in place. I go there now as a spectator and give support to what I said in the beginning when we launched, that it was an experiment. We've done everything we can do in terms of planning. We hope that, like all experiments, when you hit the street level, you will still see problems. And I go there to give support to the young men and women who have taken this responsibility on to administer, and so far so good. And from very modest beginnings, we're seeing that the number is doubling, but I hope that because we are rolling over houses from month to month that are not fully taken up, and I hope that all those houses can be taken up, and we're building more. We've put in a legal framework, we've put in a dispute resolution mechanism. We're still looking at this thing. We see now that transparency, which was a fear, is no longer an issue. People are vouching for the integrity of the process, and I'm sure that it would endure, because integrity has very little to do with me. It's a team effort. We all resolve that if you are not a first-time homeowner, you are not qualified for now. We may reach a stage where we would now say second homeowners should come into this thing. But the most vulnerable people who save up money to buy a house, people who pay very astronomical rent, paid in advance when they earn their salaries in arrears, are the people for whom this initiative was conceived. To show that the government cares about their plight and about their concerns, and to give them hope, even if they are not immediate beneficiaries, that it is possible to own a home if you work hard, if you apply honestly, and you don't need to know anybody or be related to anybody.
And that's a very good point you've made there. The issue of transparency. I confess that I tried to beat the system, you know.
You did?
Yes.
How?
You know, we wanted to prove, to see if the system was really as tight as was said at the launching. And what we found out was, yes, everyone says there is no loophole. You can't infiltrate that system to beat it.
Well, that's comforting to know.
But the thing is, they're tying that to you. People think that when you leave office, it won't be so tight, and then we will find a lot of people breaking through the loopholes to
I don't
benefit.
like to disappoint people, but I think on this one,
yes,
they will be disappointed. Because as I said at the launch, this wasn't a one-man show. And I think we're close to about 30 or 40 at various levels of government, commissioners, PAMSECs, from various departments,
yes,
finance, land, fiscal planning, people from private sector who worked on this process for almost 3 years.
yes.
We held several meetings, and these were our conclusions. So it's something that has been very, very deeply debated. There were issues we didn't agree about. And I told members of the committee that if you are hoping to buy from this,
Yes.
and you already have a home, you better get out of this committee now. And I disappointed them, but again, they were able to see the altruistic and long-term benefit for the whole of the economy. As I said, it's not going to be first-time homeowners forever.
Yes.
After a time, we will be able to review and say, okay, if prosperity has come and people want to buy a second home,
why not?
Why not? I think that idea would endure, because we are doing something that helps us safeguard ourselves. Those who already have properties can set up a system that allows other people to compete to own their own properties.
Yes.
And that is the way, I think, to reduce inequality, to bring inclusion, and to bring belief. And when there's belief and hope, society is safer.
All right. And you're building more homes, I know, in Igondo and Aja. The only thing is, people are saying that you have allegedly put it out there. You never promised to build cheaper homes for Lagosians.
You know, in every society, at any point in time, not everybody in that society has all of what they need. Not everybody can own a car at the time they want to own it.
Yes.
Sometime later in life, things change. Not anybody can own houses. And that's how societies evolve, that everybody gets a chance to get on the ladder. Now, let us also remember that the global financial crisis was started by unsustainable mortgages. They lent money to people who could not afford
to pay back.
And the system collapsed. And it had a reverberating effect all over the world. And many people lost their homes. So what was the value of a home you bought and you lost? You really never had a home. The key was sustainability, because the notion that people can actually be dashed homes is not an economic notion. It's an emotional notion. And therefore, how many people can government really generate and build houses and give them away, as it were? So sustainability in affordability comes from the ability to pay your mortgages, so that when you benefit from what taxpayers' money has built and you pay back, the next person can get on that ladder, because we will use what you pay back to build the next set of homes. If there are very few defaults, and ideally no default, in 7 years' time, government will not have to put a penny into this project again. It will self-finance itself. And if everybody takes their turn, we will reduce the desperation. If everybody knows that legitimately it will get to my turn, then you will see more productivity at work. Because once you have a mortgage, you have a job, you know that your ability to pay is dependent on your output at work. And that if you don't lose your job, you won't lose your home. But that is our outlook. And workers are asking for more pay. Landowners are asking for more money for their land. These are the inputs into building a house.
I want to thank you very much, Governor Fashola, for coming on the program again.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it for this week. Don't forget to like 60 Minutes with Angela on Facebook. Alternatively, you can follow me on Twitter, Angela at 60 Minutes. I'm Angela Ajitumobi. I thank you for the pleasure of your company.